and welcome to another episode of the Herd Main Show. I am your herd leader, John Wayne.
I'm your herd mom, Megan. You didn't warn me again.
And this week, if you paid attention last week, we're continuing to talk about character arcs throughout the sequel trilogy. The sequel trilogy is done now, and so to properly enjoy not only episode 9, but the whole thing, we're journeying through the sequel trilogy through its characters. Arguably, you don't have a movie if your characters don't have a story. And so by understanding what our perspective is and also what the creator's perspective was and giving us those stories, all that kind of amalgamates into, hey, good movie, hopefully.
Yeah.
Last time we had a couple of comments on, hey, I didn't really think about that, about this character, cool. Or hey, I thought that this perspective was really interesting. There was a couple of times, and there was a couple of times people even commented and were like, hey, I always thought of it this way. And it was just like, holy crap, we didn't even get into that. Mostly because time-wise last time we were kind of pushing through, but it was also just, that's exactly what we wanted to do with this, is we're not saying this is what happened to Finn and this is what happened to Poe. It's just, what did you think about this? What did you think about that?
Yeah.
How did you perceive it? And because we're very big on perception. I bring things to how I perceive Star Wars. You bring things that happened even last week, talking about a thing where it's just like, holy, what? It was something with Rey, right?
Something like that. I don't remember.
But
I just talk. I don't think.
Right. We don't remember what we say. If you hear a cat, she's just upset because she's not in the show.
She's an Instagram
she doesn't have a
influencer,
point. She's got a lot of negative, toxic opinions about Star Wars, so we just excommunicate her. If you could just go to our Patreon page and donate all that you can so that we can send her off to college and get her educated on proper Star Wars.
Get her some educating.
We feel like, that would just make the world a better place. So link to our Patreon's in the bio.
Good segue.
So all of it's just to kind of help us appreciate not only each film, but the sequel trilogy as a whole better. And also it's a time, now that we know where the characters end up, kind of going back and maybe, and this even kind of happened with Kylo, I think, if not in what we talked about in the episode last week, what we've talked about before, like knowing where he ends up, now there's things going back, what we thought of in The Force Awakens and what we thought of in The Last Jedi, now we know where that's paying off. And so you almost watch each movie differently with every new part added to it. It's the same way with like watching the prequels differently because of watching the Clone Wars. Which, speaking of, that first episode though.
Oh boy.
Wow. We're going to find some time to sit down and have a bonus episode and talk about that because it was great. It was such a wonderful start, and it's just so great to have Clone Wars back. I'm not ready for another ending. This will be the third time Clone Wars has ended.
I talked about this while we were watching it. And it, how did he get hotter? Honestly, Anakin,
I think I like his new model the
really?
least. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't like
the butt chin.
Well, no, there's not. I don't know. He doesn't benefit as much, I think, from the new looks.
Yeah. Who do you think benefits the most from the new looks?
Obi-Wan.
Yes.
Obi-Wan and for some reason really Mace, and he was barely in this one, but there was just a couple of shots where I've seen where it's just like, wow, I like this more detailed new look.
Or in the last one, he just looks smooth.
Yeah. So it's really pretty. It's really nice. It was just very Clone Wars. So
it was very.
You can let us know wherever through our social medias, or if this is on YouTube in the comments. However,
nail something to our door.
Right. You can let us know what you thought, or you can just wait. Like I said, we're going to try and put out a bonus episode. I'm not going to promise that that's going to be all the time. Because I don't know how it's going to work. We don't know.
Yeah, we're still deciding how. We haven't even been through The Mandalorian.
Right. Like right now, it could work out. We're going to have to retroactively do The Mandalorian. We'll probably finish The Mandalorian deep dives leading up to season 2 at this point. We're going to play that one by ear. But at least for episode 1, we're going to find some time to sit down and talk about it, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
But as far as The Last Jedi, so this week, we're talking about Last Jedi. So where we left off The Last Jedi was interesting because so much was so easy to just pick up and go. Like, I was talking about this to someone recently, where it's like episode 8 benefited the most from the time frame of the sequel trilogy, because episode 8 to 9, there's a year. You have to, like, creators have to imagine what's happened in this year.
Yeah.
Somebody has to come up with those stories so that you're like, okay, how is episode 9 Kylo different from episode 8 Kylo? And so forth for every character. Whereas with episode 8, you went right from where they left off to where we pick up.
Finn leaky bag, yeah.
Right, Finn leaky bag. What?
I think this is arguably our favorite of the sequel trilogy.
Yes.
Okay, that was a big lead up to it.
I've watched, as of now, because I've had the benefit of watching it the most. Once we get the home release of 9 and I get to binge that a good few times, and that starts, I mean, you know, the more I watch, the more I tend to like. Now, definitely as far as, like, finding meaning and, like, oh man, this speaks to me kind of thing. You know, we mentioned last week about Jim, who just lights up your world when he talks about Star Wars, and he shared something on Twitter recently where it was like, yeah, I don't really do the rank thing. You know, I consider my favorites based on what it means to me.
Yeah.
And you know, and so episode 8, as far as what we like the most, it's mostly for me because of what it means to me, not because of anything spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, we were going through some stuff when 8 came out, like, and I think that's why it had such an impact.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's cool to get caught up in, like, bests and worsts or likes and dislikes and everything, but I think sometimes you just got to get to the simple fact of what did it mean to you. And when we talk about some of these character arcs, that's all it is. It's like, what did these character choices mean to us, and what kind of character does that give us to see ourselves in or to see the world through? Because, like, there are certain characters I don't relate to, but it helps me see like glimpses of, oh wow, this is like this in the real world, or this is like these people, or this is like that situation. And it's just one of those things where it's just like seeing the world through Star Wars.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Whatnot. So when The Last Jedi released, did any story arcs go in a very divergent direction for you? Like, I mean, obviously imagination versus reality is one thing, but, like, did any one character go in a completely unexpected direction?
Honestly, no. Everybody kind of went the way, well, Poe for a little bit, but, like, he came back to center for a little. Like, I was not expecting him to have a freaking mutiny.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's fair. Because you couldn't have foreseen how he would interact with the new character of, like, Holdo and all that other stuff, for sure.
Which, big ups to Holdo.
Oh yeah,
I
Laura
love
Dern.
her
She doesn't have a character
so
arc.
much.
She's just fantastic.
She's just amazing. She's just Laura Dern.
I mean, and okay, to say
up.
she doesn't have a character arc, she doesn't
does.
have. There's not a. She's not going to be in this episode. I couldn't think of what to say. Like,
we didn't see where
like,
she started off.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, I mean, if we wanted to, but we're trying to stay in the bounds of the movie. We could apply Princess of Alderaan, the book that deals with young Leia and Holdo. Cool. There's a couple of comics. Cool. But that's not this movie.
Yeah.
Trying to stay in this movie.
In this one.
So if you came here for Holdo, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
you do have Holdo appreciation. We love Holdo.
Yeah, and I think...
Because Laura Dern.
Yeah, I think that... No one had a very, like, predictable character arc, but they kind of played within the confines of what you think their character would do. Mm-hmm. So, like, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Like, you didn't predict exactly, like, what was going to happen, but you kind of imagined, okay, yeah, this is not what I expected he would say, but it's kind of, like, grumpy, like I expected.
Yeah,
or, like,
exactly.
Oh, this is definitely, of course they're going to do, yeah.
Wasn't
right.
expecting porgs. Let's be real.
Okay.
Like, that came out of nowhere for me.
Just in general, or just like your appreciation of them?
Just, exactly.
Like, oh, I love these little things. Like,
I saw them in the trailer and I was like, oh, we're doing
new
this
cute
again.
thing. Right. I will say episode 8 definitely feels more fun and...
yes.
I don't want to say cutesy in the wrong way, but like with porgs, it's just one of those things where it's just like, there's a lot of humor, there's a lot of things that are just appreciable, like, because they're, but like with porgs, you can just be like, oh, that's cool. I like that. Like, it's just neat because it's cute and all this other stuff. There's just a lot that I don't think, and I think it balances out some of the other stuff that is a bit more traditional.
Yeah.
This is the middle one. This is the heavy stuff. Like, I feel like it's well balanced, but as Star Wars movies go, I think it was funnier than some.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like, there were moments like Luke tossing the lightsaber over his shoulder and the scene where Chewbacca is eating the porg. Like, the stuff like that catches you off guard and makes you laugh. Those were my favorite bits of the movie.
Now, I think, if I can speak to that real quick before moving on, I think why I don't get caught up with that sort of stuff, because especially like the lightsaber thing being a little bit too much for some people, I think part of it is because it's very in line with humor of Star Wars animation, which seems odd, but like if you watch Star Wars Resistance like you watch Episode 8, you're gonna have a bad time because this is too funny, this is too silly, this is too childish. It's a show.
But also
right. Like here's like, of course you got to suspend a little bit because it's not meant to be serious Star Wars.
Exactly.
And not to say Episode 8 isn't meant to be serious Star Wars, but it's one of those things where it's like, this is a super serious thing. Let's have fun with it.
And like the ultimate, this is a little bit off course, but like the ultimate humor for me in some stuff is like someone being handed something, that person immediately dropping or throwing it.
Right.
Like that scene in Willy Wonka where the guy hands him his business card and he just goes and just like tosses it. I don't know why that's so funny to me.
I remember Gene Wilder.
That's not even that one.
That's not even that one. That was
no wait. That's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The one I'm thinking of, Charlie and the Chocolate
There's
Factory.
actually a difference in the title.
Yes.
What?
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
I just remember
original
like
title.
Well, okay, for that one, I just remember that freaking
Johnny Depp.
Christopher Lee came out of nowhere.
He really did.
Like, I just remember this whole backstory stuff that came out of nowhere, and I'm just like,
and that awkward
wait,
hug.
what?
Was
awesome. Yeah, I especially the original. I remember Squat Diddley about. Like, goodness gracious.
I too remember Squat Diddley.
That's not the kind of movies I watched as a kid. Like, I don't get whimsical. I don't get. Now, I love Disney, but I only now have an appreciation for Disney.
Meanwhile, join me at Mr. McGorham's Wonder Emporium.
Like, if I appreciated any sort of child's movie as a child, it was usually because it dealt with stuff that probably shouldn't have been in a child's movie, like Black Cauldron, Anastasia, like,
love
Return to Camelot, like stuff where
Quest
it's just
Camelot.
like, stuff where it's just like, this is a little much. Like, we could have probably just not seen this guy die or seen this man rot to death or stuff like. Yeah. But no, I love that. That made me.
Meanwhile,
Meanwhile, Mr. Rogers over here.
Mr. Rogers. That's what I was raised on.
Speaking of Mr. Rogers, bad segue, but Finn. You're going to see we kind of have a little bit of an... I have a little bit of an order when I did this because I had to think about it that way. So every time we're going to start with Finn a little bit.
From the first appearance.
Pretty much. Like that. Basically, that's how I built the first one, and then every other one followed. So in this case, Finn. It's not in any particular order or let's go from least to most or anything like that. It just happened. We left Finn off as...
Scared.
Yeah.
Scared boy.
He went through this journey of being a little bit of a salesman. Kind of like, oh, I'm different. I don't go with the flow of the First Order and this new regimen and these things that... Like, you've got to figure, he's been trained to think that the First Order is the way. Like, this is how things should be. This is what you should do and all this other stuff. And he doesn't work with that. Oh, no.
Yeah.
And he's trying to find his footing along the way of, like... Well, I'm going to run away, and everybody keeps thinks like, oh, you're running away, you must be the hero, you must be the, resistance guy, and it's like, no, I just want to run away. There's a little bit of that carried over, arguably, in The Last Jedi, which makes sense because it's the next day. Scene. Yeah. How did you feel that first encounter with Rose was a continuation of that, and then where do you think he went from there?
He's a big liar boy. Like, he...
I love when he not to interrupt, but like this is along the lines of the
Inspecting it.
this is along the lines of the boyfriend thing, where it's just like I'm on track. Wait, what? Like it's just like as soon as she's like, what are you doing? Oh, no, mission, secret mission. It's just like, we gotta stop this gas from leaking before we die. Oh, boyfriend? Wait, what? You're no boyfriend? You alone? What? Like, I just love...
Yeah.
And I think part of it's John Boyega. I think it's just writing as well. But I think it's just...
Yeah.
I love humor where it's just like, on track. Wait, what? Like, I don't know.
He's
I'm
very
simple.
funny with that kind of thing.
So I really enjoyed that exchange because it's a little bit of that humor where it's just like, mission, saving people, hero Finn.
Yes. And I think we can't talk about TLJ without talking about Rose.
Sorry, did you just
I
what?
just TLJ'd because I couldn't remember the full title, honestly.
The Last Jedi.
Look, okay, I forgot.
What are we talking about again?
I forgot that DJ was in this movie.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And I was like, oh wait, that's Force Awakens.
It's okay. So something interesting.
There's a lot in this movie.
Finn seems to be like his character growth seems to be connected to other characters.
Yeah.
Leading him. Mm-hmm. In this film, it's Rose and DJ. I think they have the most input into his character.
Yeah, because like Finn likes to collect people.
Right.
He's like our friend Samantha. He is so friendly and so sweet that like he encounters people and they immediately want to take care of him. Mm-hmm. Except she's the one taking care of other people.
Right.
But
yeah, this person is the person of a lot of people. Like, oh, Finn. Like, there's a lot of people that seem like that. For sure.
But yeah, like we saw a Twitter post, like it was years ago, where it's talking about like Finn doesn't have anything that's his. He just collects things from other people. Like he wears Poe's socks. He uses Ray's blanket. I
like this idea.
It's really cool, and it's very much his character because he.
I think he is a really good representation of being the result of others.
Yeah, and he's a blank slate, really.
Right. Yeah. So like he's learning from Poe. He's learning from Rose. He's learning from Ray. He's learning from all these other people. Like his progress happens by progressing with others, kind of thing.
And it's not till the next movie where he finally comes into himself.
He starts to make a lot of choices that go against maybe some of those other people he's kind of collected along the way, or that have collected him. Like either way, how it depends on how you look at it.
You don't make friends with Finn; you adopt Finn.
Because he starts off with the whole, I'm not here for the Resistance. I'm gonna go save Ray. Like Ray is his mission at first
because he thinks that Ray is the solution to the problem. I think like he sees what she did in the forest. Well, he didn't see it, but like he knows what she did, and he's like, she has to be the one to fix this.
I see it more as a protective thing, but I think it's a representation. I think this is the negative of his character trait that we were just talking about of he progresses off of others.
Yeah, and he's single-minded in that.
Right, so his thing is, like, where's my meaning without Ray? I've got to get Ray. I've got to protect Ray. She doesn't know what she's getting into. And you could argue there's a little bit of this, like, stereotypical, like, guy has to rescue girl aspect. Yeah. And they even kind of acknowledge a little bit of that in The Force Awakens, jokingly.
Stop taking my hand.
Right. But it's this idea of he sees it this way, and he's like, oh no, we got to get to this, and Ray's like, what about that? And no, it's the other way around. Mm-hmm. But similarly, like, it's this idea of like, I can fix this. I know the plan. Oh wait, no, I don't. Let me actually support these other people. Yeah. And that's okay. It's okay not to have it all figured out. But like that's his thing. I think is it's just like, you don't know what I know, and you don't see it. Like,
it's an interesting shake-up of the dynamic. Mm-hmm. Like, you've got, if we're going in original trilogy terms, you've got Luke as Rey, or Rey as Luke. Mm-hmm. You've got, this is going to be controversial, Finn as Han, who just doesn't really know what's going on. He's just sort of doing it.
Right.
And then you've got Leia as Poe.
I mean, I could see a little bit of that.
Awesome. Doing stuff.
The leader.
Hard-headed. Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, who succeeds, and I know that they share a lot of responsibility, but ultimately, Poe was the one she was kind of grooming to be the leader, the next leader.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
no, I mean,
This is the most Leia we've gotten, too.
oh, in The Last Jedi? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I think Rose, DJ, and other events kind of help push him on the track of, like, look, dude, it's about where your focus is.
Yeah, and I think it's at that final standoff with Phasma where he finally is, all of the aspects have come together and made Finn stand up and be like, you know what? No.
Right. And then it's also just a pretty shot. Like,
It's a great shot.
Like, The Last Jedi is one of the prettiest Star Wars movies
so
out
great.
there.
Like, people can talk as much as they want to about BB-8 driving an ATST, but it is the best shot of the movie in my opinion.
It's
like,
right.
I will take nothing from nobody. You can give me your guff and I'll throw it away. That is the best shot of the entire movie.
It's funny.
It's so funny.
It's a great progress of droid to the rescue kind of thing.
And then you got Rose, who I initially tried to talk about, but then got distracted. Who
That doesn't happen on this show.
Of course not. The whole first part of the movie is in a way her sister Paige's story, of like, hey,
Oh yeah, the first part of the battle.
Yeah.
And everything.
Her sister literally gives her life for the cause that they've been fighting for their entire lives.
I love the storytelling of this because it's not direct. They don't have direct lines. They don't have like
Yeah.
they don't ever complete you get it without them having to tell you what to get. I really appreciate that.
It's that great thing of show don't tell.
Yeah.
Like it's exposition without like long drawn out conversations.
Well, and so far Finn hasn't experienced that sort of thing. Like he hasn't experienced a reason to fight like that.
And that's the thing is Finn's got nothing to lose.
Right. Well, except in his mind, Rey.
Yeah.
Which is why he's so like focused in on saving her. But it's this idea of just like I think what Rose adds to him is there's such a bigger picture of reasons to fight, and not reasons to fight to be bad or win or destroy.
Yeah.
But what she ultimately teaches, I think, is and what her character point is you fight for what you love. Like fight to keep what you love.
Exactly.
The rest, like if you fight that way, then you really ultimately win.
Yeah.
But if you just lose sight of everything, of all the other stuff, and you're just like, no, your attention's in the wrong place, you're gonna lose everything.
Exactly. When you fight for the purpose of destruction and power, you're going to lose no matter what. Mm-hmm. Even if you win, you'll lose. I think Palpatine showed us that.
Right. Even when you win, you lose.
But if you fight with the intention of keeping what you have, like in preservation of
and it's
have.
also the terminology.
Yeah.
You're not fighting, you're saving. Like save what you love. Mm-hmm. That's how you win. So it's this idea of everything I do is to save what I love. It's not
Exactly.
It doesn't have to look like fighting, but it does have to look like it has to be different. It can't be so reactionary.
And I will say, I had this feeling when we saw the movie. I still kind of have the feeling now. The kiss was unnecessary. Like, I get what they were trying to convey, and I understand, but, like, I don't think any kind of romance in that moment was really necessary to the story. Mm-hmm. But that's just me. Like, if you ship it to death, dude, great. Like, I didn't personally enjoy that, but that's not because I don't like either of the characters. I love the characters. I just wish that there had been more, like, lead up to it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't really care.
Yeah.
I don't have the energy to even get into it.
Yeah,
I just don't care.
It's always been a thing for me. I don't like unnecessary love plots.
If that's not satisfying or if that doesn't feel right, like I'm sorry, but like there's just I think this is one of those things that's just the way it is because of how I feel in the discourse of certain things where it's just like I've had to stop and just throw hands and just be like I don't care. I'm sorry.
And that's fine.
Because it's just like certain things just suck you in and have so much going on that it's just like, what's even the point of fighting about this? What's even the point of one or the other? Like, And I'm sorry that the Finn Rose romance is not that big of a deal to me in my grand scheme of appreciating and loving Star Wars.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's not a big deal to me either. It's
like,
just
it's just such a little thing.
A little teeny tiny little thing on a fantastic
Now,
movie.
again, if it's big, it's a big deal to you, love it. Love
Absolutely.
it to death. Enjoy it.
They're both beautiful people.
Now, if it's not, just leave people alone that do like it too. Like I said,
Exactly.
like just do what I do and just be like, you know what, that's not a big deal to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's, I mean, yeah, like we love Star Wars, but certain things just aren't a big deal. And I think, you know, depending on where your focus is, you can lose the joy you have for certain things. And I think that's something that happened a lot with The Last Jedi, is a lot of people missing the complete message of, okay, you didn't like it, move on. Like what you like. Just keep going. Go back and like what you liked then. Watch episode 1 through 7 if that's all you liked.
Exactly.
Like, however you need to do it. But, like, you don't have to go after what you don't like.
Yeah. And this
you don't,
is...
like, don't be that guy that everybody knows, oh, that's the doesn't like The Last Jedi guy. That's the doesn't like the sequel trilogy guy. That's the doesn't like the prequels guy. Don't be that person.
Yeah.
Be known for what you
Yeah.
love. Be known for the, oh, man, that... I love talking to this guy about Star Wars. You don't meet another guy that loves Clone Wars like him. Oh, man, she loves the original trilogy. You just can't even. Like, you need to talk. Like, be known for what you love.
If you're known for what you hate, that's not inviting conversation. Like, there's a dude that I will avoid to the end of my life because of how he speaks about Jar Jar.
Yeah, it's just this endless thing of just like, you're the I don't like Jar Jar guy now.
That's fine. If it is okay if you don't like him, but saying...
Like, that's your, but if that's your
things.
whole thing, if your whole thing is built around hate.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I say, like, so many people miss the message of Rose and The Last Jedi of, you know, it's about how you fight and what you fight for.
I should have worn my Rose shirt.
That was such a point in that movie. And that was such a point for Finn's character. And that was the whole purpose of Rose's character as a support to Finn's story.
Exactly. And Rose is a character of strength and perspective. And that's
Exactly.
what makes her a fantastic character.
And that's where her meaning comes from in this film, I think. I wish there would have been more in 9, but at the same time, there's also other parts through certain comics and whatnot where she's gotten to grow as a character, which has also been very satisfying. And they've continued some trends with her character there. And it's just like, I have to focus on appreciating that rather than getting upset about her not being in 9.
Yeah.
But... at the bare minimum, I'm glad she was in 8 for what she was in because of her importance to the greater story.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Next.
yeah. The first one always tends to be the big,
Yeah.
like, oh, unload.
Finn had a lot of going on.
And it's not even all just about Finn. We just get going.
Yeah.
So, Rey. Rey had a lot going on with this one, arguably being part of the main focus of this film. She was center stage for a lot of her character journey. Where does a character like Rey, who has just experienced and awakened this great power, who didn't want this stuff or didn't want to leave her safe space, where does a character like that go in The Last Jedi?
Well, you can go one of two ways. You can either say no and walk away from it and just isolate yourself from the Force and just never speak of it again because you're afraid of it, or you can jump in with both feet and just be like, hey, I want to learn everything like Rey did. Like, that's what I like about Rey.
To a point.
To a point.
I mean, she went there. She went to give Luke the lightsaber, and her whole point was to get Luke. Like, she wasn't even paying attention to what she needed to learn because she was so focused on convincing Luke to do Luke stuff.
Yeah.
Like, take the lightsaber, go save the day, destroy the First Order, save Ben, or kill Ben, whatever. But, like...
honestly, it's kind of annoying.
Her whole thing was giving this responsibility away. Like, I'm not the hero. I'm just meant to get the hero.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people were thinking was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what she thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
And none of that works out to the point that she has to do something. Mm-hmm. And I think that, to a point, Leia knew that by sending Rey. Like, you're going to try and get Luke to do this, and we definitely need Luke. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, you're going to discover yourself if you go. I think that's the whole point of, like, anybody could have gone to get Luke. Leia could have even gone.
Mm-hmm.
But that was, I think, the significance of Leia choosing to send Rey.
Mm-hmm.
Because she knew, and we can even say that she knew through the Force in some way, you need to do this.
Yeah.
Because you need to learn yourself, and you need to take the responsibility that the Force has chosen you for. Because it's not hard to see. Clearly, she has been chosen for this kind of time, this kind of circumstance. But she doesn't want it. She wants to go back to Jakku. She wants to go to the familiar. And she wants to focus on, even there, it's still the same thing of my parents. Who are my parents? Why'd they leave me?
Yeah.
Who am I?
Yeah.
You know, because of my parents and all this other stuff.
And I think I've gotten a new perspective on Rey's journey in the cave when she goes to the mirror cave. It's not, I don't think it was the Force telling her, you know, it's just you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about it. It's you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was kind of the Force saying, you are who you choose to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to show you your parents because what difference would it make? At the end of the day, it's up to you.
Well, and I think that, regardless of Episode 9's outcome, is the point.
Because honestly, this was planned way before Episode 9.
Maybe.
I think.
I don't know.
I think that they had an idea.
I think people get lost in the sauce of that stuff, though.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another thing where I'm just like, I don't care when they came up with it.
Honestly, yeah.
Like, and again, and it's not me harping on,
Oh, no.
on your take of it. It's just like, I think fans, it matters way too much. Well, when was this an idea? When did this happen? Because clearly this one and this one, and if you follow my pie chart, you'll see that this was not the outcome that was supposed to be, and it's just like,
I got boxes full of Pepe.
right, it's just like, this should have been the way, like, no, like, I don't care.
Like,
I don't care when they came up that she was a
yeah.
Palpatine.
Honestly, like, I really don't think that it would have been, like, a last-minute decision.
Gosh, no,
No.
they couldn't have.
No.
But I mean, we can get into the ins and outs of it in another time, but, you know, I think the point stands, and that's the important thing. The point stands, you choose. Mm-hmm. It's up to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't... Now, there's many ways you can take it where,
Yeah.
you know, you've got the two shadows that become one, like, okay, is she an amalgamation of Luke and Leia there? Is that an you know, like, or, you know, you can look at the multiple rays of, like, there's so many different outcomes.
Exactly,
But,
that's what I think.
right, like, these are all the possible rays. But at some point, you've got to face yourself and who you are,
Yeah.
or who you aren't, and you've got to decide.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think this movie, it's easy. It's very easy to take the story of nobody. Mm-hmm. And we were big fans of this.
Yeah.
We liked the direction this took Star Wars as a whole. This idea of disseminating the power of the Force, and, like, you don't have to be of a particular lineage. Now, I also agree, we kind of forget about the hundreds of other Jedi that they weren't important, they weren't special, they weren't Skywalkers.
Yeah.
They were still Jedi, they were still powerful and cool and significant.
Yeah, Depa Billaba was born awesome, though.
Like, I get wanting Rey to be the big representation of that sort of thing, but I think that's what Broom Boy did. Mm-hmm. Like, I think we took the message and applied it to Rey and left it there as if Rey was meant to be this banner child of anybody can be powerful. Well, yeah, they never said you couldn't. They just...
Exactly.
It's just that this lineage has clearly...
They're responsible.
You know, like, it comes down to the Skywalkers and the Palpatines every time. And at the end of the day, regardless of how, I do believe that Rey and just her existence came out of unnatural means.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we need to go back and look at all of the prophecies that were in the Jedi Path book and be like,
Right. But, like, you know, I believe she came about from unnatural circumstances of this whole thing of, like, Palpatine sure probably thought he was smart and had a good plan and all this other stuff, and it backfired. And I think that's even more powerful for her character of, like, yeah, you're this, you were born out of this, but you chose this and did this with it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's the Iron Giant thing. You are who you choose to be.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter where you came from.
So I think that message for her, regardless of who she did really end up being. And I don't think that episode 9's revelation undoes that revelation in episode 8, and I don't think it undoes the importance of, anybody can be powerful. You don't have to be born a certain way, born of a certain lineage, born in a certain class. You don't have to be a certain color, a certain gender. Nothing matters.
We're all gonna die. Nothing matters. No.
Nothing matters to who you choose to be, except what you choose. Now, certain things others are gonna try and like apply to you, and they're gonna try and make you fit in certain boxes and certain labels and certain. People are going to do that. You can either choose to let that be done to yourself, or you can choose to go against the grain. You can go against the system, and you can be you regardless.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like, that's still important, and that's still there. That's the whole point of Broom Kid, I think, is that's a freaking stable boy using the Force. Boom. That's big. That's your representation right there. Mm-hmm. Who cares who Rey is?
Exactly.
Like, and obviously not really, but like...
Yeah.
We inadvertently do the thing we're talking about not doing. It's like, you don't have to be important, but like, oh, you're so important because you represent this. So like, you're so important for not being important. Like, like it contradicts, it is just like that. That's why that wasn't necessarily meant to be Rey's thing, but we made it a thing. And I think that happened a lot for a lot of folks. And I think a lot of people clung to that because that was their first experience of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, nah, dog, we've been dealing with this for a while. There's been plenty of people that have been significant regardless of their heritage and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so I think if your only picture of power outside of a certain lineage or something is Rey, you're probably going to hold hard and fast to it. But the reality is that is a representation of something that's been ongoing and that exists.
Yeah.
Rey primarily is just the representation of choosing to be who you want to be.
Exactly.
And, regardless of whatever.
And I think it can also be said that Rey's character arc in this is based on a lot of seeing the mistakes that others have made and improving upon them.
Right.
Like, she saw some stuff when she was with Luke. She, instead of using it to be like, it's hopeless, this is never gonna happen, I'm just gonna go in this hut and cry for a little bit. Mm-hmm. She did that, but then she got back up and was like,
it's just like, if you're not gonna do this, I will.
Exactly. And I think that can be said of, what our current generation is doing.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, like, that's a very generational representation there of just like, regardless of the sins of the past, regardless of what others have done.
Yeah, it's down to us now.
Right. It like, and that's part of the thing of this sequel trilogy, and that's we spent a bit of a time talking about that last week of original trilogy characters carrying over and not necessarily being the point. They had their parts to play for sure, but like the whole point was like it's for this generation. This is this generation's battle. Now the previous generation has a part to play in taking responsibility for sure, but ultimately who leads us forward it's got to be this generation. And Rey definitely is a picture of that, of like, well, if you won't do it, I will.
Exactly.
And that's significant. I mean, because she helped Luke along in his progress as well.
Luke along.
Luke along.
Luke along. That's the.
It helps him along in his journey as a character as well. From hermit, running away from his problems to accepting his problems, and regardless, that can happen whatever age.
Yeah.
Like, to think that you learn something once and you're done. Like, all the people that are like, no, he learned this and he did this and just because you did one good thing doesn't mean you're absolved of all future bad things. You're still human. Mm-hmm. And number one, you've got to have patience with yourself when that sort of thing happens. Like, look back at Anakin. Mm-hmm. His thing in the Attack of the Clones, and I feel that sometimes of just like, I should be better, I should be further, I know I'm better than this, and all this, like, that's a negative spiral that gets you stuck. Mm-hmm. Rather than looking at it of being patient, like, oh crap, I messed up, sure, it would be one thing if Luke tried and failed with Ben, like, if he tried to have it's kind of hard when you're buried under Rebel, but like, it'd be different if he had tried to reach out to Ben and make amends for what he did. But rather than do that, it was just like, well, the whole thing's broken.
Gotta throw out the entire boy.
Right. And so, and I think that's also a symbolism of, well, what do we do with these systems that have failed us in the past? Do we just throw them out and move on? Like, the outdated school system, or the religious system, or law enforcement, like all these systems that we can look at and say, well, they used to be really great, now they suck. Do we just throw them out and just move forward without them, or do we try and fix them? Do we own the problems and work together? And I think that's big picture what we look at with the Jedi stuff. Like, do we just throw it out? Like, is it all bad? Is it really all bad, like Luke says? Is it doomed to fail? I don't think so. I think it only fails when we decide that it's done.
Yeah.
Like he did. Like, of course it failed because you closed the book.
You did not believe.
You did not read until the ending.
Exactly.
Like, and that's the thing, is like, you write that ending, but rather than that, you've gotten to a point where it's just like, oh, this is bad. Well, that story's done. No, it's not. Like, keep going. Like, change the outcome then.
Exactly.
And there's just a lot of stuff with Luke in this one, and that's what I say, like, this is Luke's movie of the legacy characters. This is Luke's movie. The Force Awakens, we had Han, but in this one, I love what they did with Luke. I say, what I've said with the Rise of Skywalker, like, oh, I didn't like 3PO until episode 9. It took me until episode 8 to really like Luke. Honestly, like, Luke was never that character that I was just like insane about, and I loved, and I would just talk endlessly, and I always wanted to be on the playground. I was like, no, I
want to be Han.
Right? No, I wanted to be Boba Fett. Like, the character with no lines and the coolest look. No,
like Captain Phasma.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know what it was. Original trilogy Luke is the hero for sure, but I don't think growing up I saw myself taking that place. I wanted to be the guy on the outside of everything. Like, you do the good guys, bad guys, all this other stuff. I want to be over here just doing what I want, and like that. And I think that's a big way to make Boba Fett apply. But I think, like, representation wise, that was my thing. It was just like, I didn't want to be in the big picture. I didn't want to be the hero. I didn't want to be the villain. It wasn't until I got older, till the prequels came around, that I was like, no, I actually really love Anakin because I see a lot of myself in Anakin. But originally it was just like, I want nothing to do with the rest of it. Yeah. I don't want to be the main guy. I don't care about the main girl. I don't care about everything else everybody else likes. I'm not in. Yeah. I'm outside the bounds. So I think that was part of it. There was nothing he did wrong. There was nothing I hated about the character either.
He was supposed to be a child, and he played that character.
Yeah, I mean, he played this young person that just wanted adventure and all this other. I didn't get that when I first watched this, and so I never had a disappreciation for Luke, but it was just a matter of, it's Luke. Everybody needs a hero. He's the one everybody loves. I get it. Whereas this was the first time I was like, man, me and Luke got the same mail. Like, we drink the same Kool-Aid. Like, it was legit. It was just like, dang, like, I feel that.
I too am an old man.
Right. I too am an old grumpy man that wants to throw out the establishment. Like, dang.
Down with the system.
And just a lot of it was just that, where it's just like, holy crap, the hero turned hermit. The hero that failed. And a lot of that spoke to me because I was in a time of feeling like I did that. I felt like I was at my lowest. I felt like I was messed up, and I was not what people expected me to be. And so it's just like, it's all bad then. I'm done with it all. Yeah. I thought I believed in this thing. I believed in this process. I believed in these people. Didn't work out. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. So clearly it's all broken and it all needs to get thrown out. And I'm just going to go over here in this corner and die. Like, I'm just gonna go over here, drink my green milk, and wait to die. Yeah. And it was just like, that was the representation of how I felt. Like, that was the whole point. You think I came here to just have a good time? Like, no, I'm just waiting to die. Like, that was Luke's whole thing. I mean, there's this whole
I feel like a lot of people come to Augusta just to die.
there's like this whole fan theory, like he was about to like kill himself when Rey got there. Like there was this whole like ceremony, and like there's this thing too where it's just like you go through a point of separation as like this hermit monk thing, and then eventually get to a point where it's like you ceremoniously kill yourself. And people were like, why was he in his robes just randomly? Because he changed out really quick.
Yeah.
And it's just, and it's like almost this time of he's trying again later. Like, I'm going to burn down the books. I'm going to, it's just going to get rid of it all. And yeah, like feeling like you're there and seeing this character that everybody else has built up as the hero. And that's literally part of the story. Mm-hmm. Like, why did I fail? Because I was Luke Skywalker, the legend. Like, that stuck with me. Like, I was who they thought I would be, and I still failed, and it's just like, dang.
Yeah. It's the very Skywalker
I'm sorry if this
thing.
is heavy, sorry.
It's fine. It's the very Skywalker thing of hindsight's 2020. Like,
very much.
It's my favorite song in Hamilton is oh gosh, what's it called? Who lives, who dies, who tells your story? Yeah. Like, let me tell you what I wish I'd known when I was young and dreamed of glory. You have no control. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story.
That's the whole point of these stories, of this fictional universe we care about so much. All of it is to be able to see the world through this imaginative and creative lens. Mm-hmm. To see yourself through this idea. Like, I think about myself more when I'm watching Star Wars than just in general. I think about the world and the problems of the world and some of the solutions of the world more when I'm watching Star Wars or reading books.
More
or like,
lightsabers.
Like, in general, as you're experiencing these fictional worlds, that helps you see your world better sometimes. And that's very much this. Like, I could have gone through literally what Luke did, but I have the benefit of watching a space opera movie that taught me, you know what? It's actually not game over because of this.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't the end. I'm actually doing the opposite of what I should do when I fail. I'm running away from everything and throwing everything out, and I'm not owning my problems. And it's, you know what? I've actually got to get back up and I've got to get back in it. I've got to give this a try. I've got to do something.
Yeah.
And, that looks different for Luke. And ultimately what it looks like for Luke is this ultimate, I'm actually not going to do much. Mm-hmm. He does nothing.
He allows the next generation to take
Exactly.
over.
Like, he shows up and shows out and ultimately just says, I'm sorry. And that's it. And
that plants the seed.
Exactly.
In Kylo's brain.
And so it's this whole big thing where it's just like, obviously that plays out differently than what I ended up choosing to do as a person, but it was the choice of, I need my twin sunset moment. I need to go back and look at things the way I used to, and before all of this failure and all of this other stuff, I need my peace and purpose back, and only I can choose to have that. Only I can, like, consciously turn towards that.
Yeah.
And so Luke's thing, like, Luke is the reason I love The Last Jedi so much. Luke's story, Luke's entire journey. And I've mentioned before, but there's this really great video by a YouTuber we follow, and he basically took this and reversed it. So there's this whole big thing where Luke is there and he's looking at the twin sunsets, and basically it rewinds the entire history of his life and everything, and it takes him back to that first sunset. And that thing gets me every time because it's just like, I just imagine that happening in that moment, and I just think about what that did for me to take me back to the first moments of, like, no matter what I thought about Luke, that scene was important.
Yeah.
Like, looking ahead and looking, and you're like, I don't know what, I don't know how, but there's something bigger, there's something greater, there's something better.
Yeah.
I have to believe in that.
Yeah.
That was 19-year-old Luke all those years ago, and he had to, like, come back to this moment. Come back to this belief that there's better, there's hope. And ultimately that inspired me of just like, wait, I believed in this before, I can believe again. I've got to find that hope again.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah. And I think it can be said, you cannot change the past. None of us are time travelers. Lord be, I wish we were. But we'd probably mess everything up. But anyway, like, you cannot control what you've done as a human being.
Right.
You cannot change a single moment of your past. What you can do is you can decide to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
You can change the future.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is an incredibly inspiring idea.
And that was Luke's whole purpose in the end, was to change the future with one action.
Yeah.
And
Something so small.
and not only that, but it's just this lesson of people are people. You are human. That person that messed up and hurt you is human. Like, asterisk technicality to that, yeah, some people do some really jacked up stuff and you just got to cut those toxic people out for sure. But work with me here that in general, there's a lot of things we just shut down and we throw out the system, and we just get angry and want to burn it all down because of little things where it's just like, it's just people being people. And I know that's not necessarily fixing it, that's not necessarily taking away the way you feel, and it's not necessarily ending stuff, but it is this point where you've just got to recognize that sometimes it's as simple as that, and you've just got to be more patient with yourself. You've got to be patient with others, and you've got to learn to let go of some certain things so that you can move forward. No matter how many times you learn, no matter where you are in life, I've been trying to be a better person for 5 years, or I've been going to this church and I've been a part of this religion for 15 years, and I've just been on earth for 45 years. Like, cool, you're still going to learn until the day you die. And I think that day you die is where you get the greatest epiphany.
Yeah.
Like, that's when you learn a whole lot more, because
You're just oh, snap.
Like, that's when this whole new world opens up to us.
Yeah.
But as far as we're here right now, we're going to learn until we die.
Yeah.
You're going to mess up, and you're going to have to pick yourself up, and you're going to have to apologize, and you might have to apologize. Like, you just might have this thing that you're constantly working with. And there's something that Seer says in Jedi Fallen Order that was just, like, there's just so many quotes from that, and there's so many big moments from that are just great. And you might not be a gamer, but watch the cinematics. Get the story, because it's just big. And there's this moment where it's like, she's like, you beat it once, cool. That's not the end of it. Like, you're paraphrasing, seriously paraphrasing. But it's this idea of like, oh, you resisted the dark side once. Don't get cocky, kid, because that's forever.
Yeah.
It's always this battle of resisting the dark side, the dark side of others, within yourself. Luke, no matter what kind of heritage he has, experience he's had, he had a moment of weakness where he was tempted by the dark side. It happens, people. Like, I've seen the goodest of guys, and I know that's not a word, shut up, get off of me. I've seen really, really good people. They care about others, they care about themselves, they are just wholesome, good, grew up on Mr. Rogers people, and they get caught in situations where it's just like, I stole money and I shouldn't have done that. Mm-hmm. I, hit someone and I shouldn't have done that. Or I, a
moment of weakness.
Right. It's just like this moment of, you want to be so mad and you want to blow up, and you're just like, how in the heck could you do this? How could you throw all of this away? You had all this opportunity. You were doing so well. And you want to get so mad, and maybe you're that person and you want to get mad at yourself. That's what Luke went through, for sure. And it's just like this moment where you've got to come to this terms of like, no matter how good you are more than the sum of your actions, good or bad. Mm-hmm. You might be a guy that's checked off all his worked in the soup kitchen stuff. You might be the guy that walked the puppy across the street and helped Mrs. Nancy with her raking and, yard work and all that. Mm-hmm. Cool.
You can do all that and be a crappy person.
Like, you can still make mistakes. And that's okay. Yeah. Like, and that's the thing. Other people can do that, and that's going to have to be okay. Now, that doesn't mean forgive and, whoa, let's go get some Starbucks coffee. Like, no, maybe you forgive.
No, we gotta work on that.
Right, like maybe forgiving and I can't be around you anymore, but I do forgive you. There's a big picture to all of it, for sure. Like, I can only simplify it so much, but like, this idea that like, oh man, you're Luke Skywalker, you shouldn't have, how could you possibly be tempted? And I'm still human. Mm-hmm. Oh man, you had so much going for you and you did this bad thing, and it's just like, I'm sorry. Like, yeah. I had, like, every excuse is never going to sound good enough, and nothing's going to feel right. And it's because we want to justify it, or we just want to explain it away. And it's like, well, no, sometimes we just got to, not throw it out, but sometimes we've got to just look at it for what it is, a mistake. If you stay in that mistake, and if you stay in that as well, that's the end of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna suck. You're gonna be a hermit drinking, green milk from a tit somewhere on the middle of nowhere in Ireland. Or you can choose to acknowledge your humanity, your weakness, and just the fact that you made a mistake, no matter how big or bad, and choose to make it right. Move forward. Things might not go back to normal. At the end of the day, Luke still died, even though he tried to make it right and did something good. Like, it doesn't solve everything, but sometimes you just have to look at it, acknowledge it,
move on,
forgive it, and let go. Like, you just got to, because of the sake of what's next.
Yeah.
That can't be forever. That moment of failure cannot be forever. And like, and I could just talk forever.
I know.
But like that,
yeah.
But it's because personally it meant so much to me for this story to play out on the big screen, and for this to happen to a character I had no relationship with previously. And I just think it's so important to get that perspective, because so many people didn't get it. And I'm not trying to say like, well, you didn't get it because you just don't get it. Like, you haven't seen this, and you haven't seen what I've seen, and you don't know what I know. And like, my experiences are my experiences, and I take that into every Star Wars movie. And so me seeing my own depression and my own depravity in Luke and processing it because of a fictional character and having appreciation of that character in this film because of it, that's all me.
Yeah.
But my whole point is always, if I can get someone to see something the way I see it, not necessarily agree with it or believe it or know it, you don't even have to know it and get it, but if you see it, maybe you can appreciate it, or maybe you can at least accept it. And we talked about this in a previous episode where it's like, sometimes you just got to accept it. Pull a Lando and just be like,
I don't like it.
I
don't agree with it, but I accept it.
Like, I didn't think of it that way. I still don't like Luke in that movie, but
and that's fine.
Wow, that's big. Like, cool. And I'm not saying you have to like flood me with information like that. I'm just saying in general, learn to see, at least get it and accept it from someone else's point of view, because that can change your whole worldview. That can change your whole perspective on Star Wars. And at the end of the day, if this is so significant to us and means so much to us, we should want to see it the best way possible. And I think that comes from seeing it from all of these different angles and perspectives. I didn't like it. I don't get it. Let me talk to somebody that does like it. Maybe I'll get it through them and all of that. And so that's the whole point of all of this that we do, of like, hey, let's talk about these fictional characters. Let's talk about what this happened in this movie. It's this idea of just like, maybe you get something differently by it. We, like I said, even just in last week's episode, we got some new things out of it. And it's just this thing where it's like, that just makes me love Star Wars more.
Honestly, yeah.
Like, I think what keeps me so in love with Star Wars is by the community that we have and that we get to be a part of, and all that we share with each other.
Yeah. Like, we talked about it last week, but honestly, when I'm feeling down and out about the Star Wars fandom, I scroll through Jim's Twitter.
Yeah.
And I just look at all of his stuff, and I'm like,
there are just certain people that really bring you joy. Yeah. And
you spark joy, Jim. We love
and
you.
And you have to remember that. You have to focus on that. And just to go back to what Rose's point is that's the point. Save that. Keep on that. And like I said, if it's not something you completely enjoy, just try and accept it.
Yeah.
Just try and see it differently.
Yeah.
Think about it differently.
There's that old Confucius quote, if you hold a grudge, you hurt yourself. You hurt twice.
Right.
You suffer twice as much, something like that.
Being bitter and thinking it changes the situation or people, like that's just your problem, buddy.
That's something that I was thinking of the other day. Like, if Maul wasn't so angry,
Maul is the perfect example of that.
Lived.
And that's the whole point of his story in the Clone Wars.
Exactly. Like, that's why I love Maul as a character.
Look what happened. Obi-Wan's choice to let go and just, like, I'm not going to hold on to that hate.
No.
What good is that going to get me? Look, what good has it gotten you?
You got some awesome spider legs, but at the same time...
True.
What life are you living, fam?
I mean...
You live in the garbage.
Well, prior to that. But
like,
then, but that's a really good point. Like, that's an example of that. That's a character example of, like, focusing on the hate and harboring all that hate. That just makes you Maul, which is slightly cool.
We love Maul.
You do have fans, but more often than not, people don't like you.
Exactly. Like, Maul is my favorite Star Wars character.
And I'm not talking about Maul. I'm talking about
in
people.
general.
Because I like Maul.
I love Maul.
Yep.
I think I've made that very clear. And that's why he's my favorite character, is, like, you learn so much from the character of Maul. Like, Obi-Wan did not kill Maul. Maul killed Maul.
Right, yeah.
Like, he was fueled by hate and spite to the point where it was his end. Mm-hmm. Like, you cannot thrive on spite.
The only reason he died is because he couldn't let go.
Exactly.
He could have just run away and started a new life, but he had to fight Obi-Wan.
He had Crimson Dawn. He had Kira. Like, he didn't
have
Kira.
Kira.
No.
No way did he let Kira... No.
He's missing the lower half of his body, just saying. But, like...
There's ways around that, but I just mean
True.
she is way too good for him.
Very true.
She's smarter than that.
But, like, double lightsaber, cool guy.
Oh, yeah. Like, still a cool character.
Still a cool guy. But, like, you cannot thrive and be happy while you still have spite.
Exactly.
And that is the lesson you learn from Maul.
And partly what you learn from Luke. Like, when you have that... Very true. When you have that spite and when you have this perspective that only hurts you by keeping it, it's this idea of just, like, that changes nothing.
Mm-hmm. I had a therapist once. I've had many therapists. But, like, the way that she explained it to me was, like, it's like you're holding a rope. If you've ever held a rope on something heavy... You wrap it around your hand, you hold on to it as tight as you can. Eventually, it's going to start hurting and cut off the circulation to your body. And so you just got to drop the rope. Mm-hmm. That's the only way to get through. That's the only way to end the suffering.
Let it go.
Let it go. Be like Elsa.
Right. Let it go.
Into the unknown.
For now, we're going to let this go.
Yeah, honestly.
We have more to talk about, but in... Number one, just for stuff we've got going on, and also just to make this digestible and convenient episode, we're just going to call this part one.
We're just going to give Kylo and Poe and Leia their own episode.
Right, because clearly we can talk quite a lot. But we'll end up doing a part two, whether that'll come out in the same week or whether we'll push back the schedule for it. We'll figure that out. But yeah, we have more characters to talk about for sure. Should have seen this coming because this is one of our favorite movies. Also, I just, one of my favorite movies, and I don't talk about The Last Jedi and my appreciation of it. Well, like why I like it much, because it tends to be a little much for people.
Yeah.
So
and it's a lot of soul-bearing personal stuff.
Yeah,
as well.
and that's the thing is, so but to be known and to be vulnerable, but to be vulnerable is to be known. So, but
poignant.
We will be back at some point with the rest of the Last Jedi and the character arcs of it. Maybe we'll even add in a couple of extras since we might have a little extra time. We shall see. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, we will end it in two parts.
Yeah, the true character arc of BB-8.
Right. But be sure, guys, if you are not a part of the conversation, to be a part of it, and you can do that. We have YouTube, we have our social medias. Connect with us there, follow us there, stay up to date on the episode, but also talk to us. Continue this conversation. Let us know what you thought about some of these characters that we talked about. If there's one we hadn't and you want to get in on that conversation, hit us up with that too, and just feel free to add us for anything, whatever. We love talking to people in general, whether it has to do with episodes or not. So feel free to do that. And also, wherever you're digesting this episode, feel free to let people know you like it. If it's
Take some Tums.
Yeah. If it is YouTube, like, share, that'd be great. If it's Apple Podcasts or somewhere else where you can rate and review, that would be great. If we did a good enough job and you think we deserve something special, head to our Patreon, see what we've got going on there, and be a part of that and support the show and all that other stuff. But we will be back with more. But thanks for being a part of this episode. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Even though you're not here. Thanks for being wherever you are.
Yeah.
And for some reason putting up with this episode.
I liked it.
It's a good episode. Good episode.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye.